Hello everybody, Titan Slayer here, and welcome to the first of my educational Smite videos. Hopefully giving you a bit of handy information for newer and experienced players alike. And we're here in jungle practice today. I apologise if the video quality is on the poor side. The internet where I live is not great, but that shouldn't really matter here, because what we're going to be doing is, as you may have guessed from the title, going over relics. What they do, very quickly, because most of you will know that, and more importantly, when to buy particular ones and how to use them. So we're going to start with the relics that are based around helping you to survive, and the main ones are Aegis, Beads, and Bracer. Especially Aegis and Beads, the reason we'll get onto in a moment. So these are all pretty simple relics. Aegis, if you pop it, then during that animation you cannot attack, but you also cannot take damage from anything. Pretty simple. If you've got a lot of burst coming at you in a short period of time, particularly something that is quite easy for the enemy to hit, like a Poseidon ultimate, because he has the cripple on his whirlpool, which also pulls you towards the centre, and if he builds Gem of Isolation, as he should, slows you. Aegis will save you there. You want to be picking this up on squishies, because you can get blown up very quickly, very easily, and taking no damage, even for a short period of time, is very valuable there. Similar purpose, different effect, is Purification Beads. Instead of making you immune to damage, it makes you immune to crowd control. We'll just reset the cooldown so we can use this. And unlike Aegis, you can actually still attack during the animation of the active. You saw as glow gold there. That is the universal animation for being immune to crowd control effects, and there's plenty of abilities that have a similar effect. One of the reasons we're Anubis was so we could show that kind of thing. If I use his ultimate, which makes him immune to crowd control, we get that glowing golden effect, similar to what we have with beads. And and obviously that works well if you're against strong crowd control that can really lock you down and set you up very well for the enemy team to kill you. It works well against Athena Taunt is a big one, Ymir Freeze, that sort of thing. One thing to be aware of, you cannot bead a knock-up, such as a Sylvan Assault or Geb's Shockwave, if that's the name, its second ability. Anyway, you have to, if you want to be immune to a knock-up, use it before it hits you, because you can't bead during a knock-up when you're already in the air. What this works particularly well against is crowd controls that can't really be dodged, a big one being Ares ultimate. If you get hit by an Ares ultimate, you are going to get pulled in, unless either he dies first, or if you are crowd control immune at the point where it pulls you in. And that's where beads come in handy. And the moving on to the third of these 5 ability relics, we have Bracer of Undoing. We'll need to take some damage to really show how this works, so we will go over to the tower and we'll make it into a phoenix just so it does a bit more damage. At some point we will buy boots so I can move around it slightly quicker than the pace of a dying snail. But moving on to what Bracer does, if you take damage over a period of 5 seconds and then you use Bracer, then all the damage you took in that last 5 seconds, you get 40% of it back, as well as 40% of any mana you used, but that's a much more inconsequential effect most of the time. So if we're here, we take a few Phoenix shots. I can't actually see my health bar because of the Twitch thing, but we saw there we got a pretty hefty heal. Yeah, the Twitch recording overlay that I'm using is just blocking things off there, so I couldn't really see what health I was on, but it will have healed a fair chunk. The problem with this is that, you have to take quite a bit of damage first, and you often don't really want to be using that, or you can get killed before you get a chance to Bracer if, for example, you're crowd controlled, so beads is better, or if you get hit by something that takes away a massive chunk of your health all at once, like a mage ultimate, in which case Aegis is better. Other problem it's affected by anti-heal. It's very easy for the enemy to build into anti-heal, so especially if you are a healer, or if you have a lot of lifesteal, or if you have a healer on your team, Bracer is not really worth it, because they'll just get anti-heal and negate your relic, as well as negating the lifesteal in your build, or the healing inherent in your god's kit. There we go, we actually move around at a decent pace now, we can get places. But the upgraded effect of Bracer, it reduces your cooldowns by 3 seconds. Bit niche, generally not that useful, although on gods with mobility it can be good to be able to use that ability to engage, and then take some damage, pop Bracer, heal some of it back up, and then, with the upgraded Bracer, you get your leap, your dash, whatever, sooner to be able to escape again. Anubis obviously not the best example for that, but we can see abilities immediately back on cooldown. But most of the time, not worth going. Aegis and beads are generally better. And that covers the relics that you use to help yourself survive. The counterpart to that, relics that you use to help yourself kill stuff. Primary one of these is Blink, very common on junglers in particular. If you are an assassin, you can blink in, kill someone, and then either it gives you just extra mobility, so you can blink and jump to chase someone down, or you can blink onto them and attack them, and if they try to jump away, you still have your jump to go after them, or you can blink in, kill someone, and still have your jump or dash available to escape. Again, we just need this to be off cooldown, but you can see it's got a reasonable range, so you can blink over walls pretty easy and that sort of thing. Very easy to take someone by surprise there, and that's basically how Blink works. The upgrade is handy but fairly minor. You get 10% less damage taken, but only for 2 seconds, so that's not really that potent, not really that long. Another use for this, it's not just damage dealers that you can use this on, you can use it on aggressive tanks with good engaging crowd control. If you are playing a Geb, if you are playing an Ares, if you are playing potentially a Sylvanas, being able to blink in and immediately hit those big AoE heavy crowd control ultimates, really, really potent, especially for gods where it's quite obvious that they're coming in. Geb, his rollout is very obvious, Ares is slow, Sylvanas is slow, they don't have any movement abilities. Being able to blink in and use those ultimates, really, really powerful aggression setup tool. One of the other aggressive trying to kill things relics, but one you won't see often and shouldn't use often, is Sundering Spear. You hit someone with it and they take some damage. Pretty simple, but what you can also see is that it increases the damage that they take. So if we just go Thor, so you can't really hit us, it's taking 52 damage, and then we pop him with the Sunder and all of a sudden he's taking 63 damage. So unsurprisingly, we don't do much damage when we don't really have items, but that's Sunder. Mostly not going to use it, because if you want to aggress on someone, there are better options. The damage isn't that high, the damage increase is reasonable, but you could just lock them down better with something like Horrific Emblem, you can engage on them better with Blink, it's just not really used much. The one time you might see this is when you really, really, really want to focus down a single target, and we saw this recently in the World Championships actually. You would have a tanky Fenrir as support, they would ult someone who had been sundered, or someone would sunder them while they were being carried by Fenrir, perhaps. Fenrir would just carry this individual, even if they're a tank, over to their team, and just their team would throw as much damage as they could at that target to kill them during the duration of the Fenrir ult. Can even shred through a tank quite easily, as we saw even in the final, while the tankiest warriors Nike got pretty shredded using that exact strategy. Apart from that kind of very coordinated and very choreographed niche play, you're not really going to see Sunder much, and you shouldn't really get it much. There's better options. The final kind of aggressive relic purely for yourself is Shield of Thorns. If you take damage, you reflect some of it back to the target. So not the easiest one to demonstrate here. We'll just go for Ra because he has a lot of instant burst. Aggro him, and he does some damage back to himself, but as you can see, we took a lot more damage than we dealt back to him. That's why this relic is only ever used on tanks, because they're the ones who can stand there and soak up the damage that's being dealt to them while reflecting quite a lot back. One thing to bear in mind with this, it specifically does magical damage. So if you are a Bruiser Guardian, perhaps with Pen Boots, perhaps with a Void Stone, that will cause it to do more damage. You have Magical Pen, you're reducing the enemy magical protections. That's one of those niche things that can be quite handy to know. It will make your Shield of Thorns do a lot more damage. The problem with Thorns is it's very easy to disengage from. If they're a hunter and you pop Thorns, they can just stop shooting you and start shooting something else. Wasted relic. So its real use is against damage where they can't really stop hitting you. If you have a Kukul Carnot flying towards you and you think you can kill him by popping Thorns, then having it available would be useful. If you can stand in a Zeus ult and soak up the damage, then that would also be useful because you could reflect a lot back at him. But again, that's not one you're going to see that much because of a nerf it received a while ago, where if you took up to a certain amount of damage, it's 150 times your level, it will end. So it used to be that just it would last for the 5 seconds no matter what. But now if you take, say, 1,000 damage from a mage, 1,000 damage from a hunter, and 1,000 damage from the rest of the team combined, the effect ends, so you've not really reflected that much back at any single target. That makes this a lot less useful than it used to be. And those are the relics that you would use on yourself for aggression. Now for the relics that you would use more on a team-based situation that are for aggression, and that will be these two at the bottom. Horrific Emblem, which slows the movement and attack speed of nearby enemies, and Belt of Frenzy, which increases your team's damage and gives them attack speed. Starting with Horrific Emblem, this is a very strong aggression relic. If you think you have a very strong early game, and you want to lock the enemy down and try and get some early kills, try and get a big snowball going, build Horrific Emblem on a tank, lock the enemy down with Horrific Emblem, and if you use it when they don't have their dash, either they haven't leveled it up yet because in Conquest they're level 1, or you've seen them use it recently, later in the game, then really, really helps lock someone down and kill them, and can also actually make a lot of damage, a lot of difference in a late game team fight. We see that from the attack speed reduction, and that can't be cleansed. Slow immunities, such as Thanatos' 2, or the Heavenly Wings relic, or that sort of thing, that will save someone from the movement speed slow. It will not stop their attack speed from being reduced. That's separate. It's not counted as a form of crowd control, it's counted as a debuff. Slightly different, and that's why you can't cleanse with a beads or a sprint or an ability an attack speed reduction. If that's on you, your attack speed will be reduced, making it pretty strong against enemy teams who have multiple auto attack based gods. Say they have a Hunter mid lane and a Freya carry, or something like a Mercury or a Bakasura in the jungle. You can reduce their damage a lot, and that's even more so when we look at the upgraded version, because it reduces enemy damage dealt across the board. So you're making them slower, and you're making them attack more slowly, and when they do attack, they do less damage to you. Very, very potent in a team fight, that. And again, the damage dealt reduced cannot be cleansed with a crowd control immunity or anything like that. It's another debuff. So it reduces the damage that they do, and there's nothing they can do about it. Really, really can swing a team fight in your team's favour. The contrary one to that, which you won't see as often, is Belt of Frenzy. Instead of debuffing the enemy, it buffs you and your team. They get more damage and more attack speed, and when level it up, they get 10 pen. But this is basically just not as good as Horrific Emblem, if we look at the difference between the two. 10% increased damage, 20% decreased damage, 15% attack speed increase, 25% attack speed decrease. 10 pen, it's quite nice, but it's not as strong as these other stats that you get from Horrific Emblem. The cooldowns are basically the same. Belt of Frenzy is not something you'll see often unless your team are just going for a hyper-aggressive, pop this and then throw all your damage in and make it hit as hard as possible. Not one you'll see often, not one you should pick often. There's just better relics out there. And those are the kind of aggressive teamfight relics. Moving on to the defensive teamfight relics, we have Magic Shell, we have Heavenly Wings, also known as Sprint, and we have Meditation Cloak. Magic Shell, pretty simple. You pop this, you and anyone near you, as you can see by this aura, get a health shield. Anything that hits you, it does damage to the shield before it does damage to you. So it's a teamfight survivability tool. It's bad on squishies, because you need something like an Aegis to help yourself survive. It's very good on tanks, which should not be picking up stuff like beads and Aegis. They should be picking up stuff to help their team. They can pop this and protect their entire team from a good chunk of damage. Even more so when you upgrade it. Absorbing 2 basic attacks can be huge. You know, a late game hunter can easily be doing over 300 damage with a basic attack, substantially more if they have crit. So if you're against a Mercury, again, or something like that, or if you're against an assassin that's very reliant on their auto-attack cancels, like a Loki as a prime example. Blocking Loki's basic attacks, everything he does, pretty much, is basic attack cancels, auto-attack cancels. So this is really, really, really strong as a counter to Loki. Most of the people who complain about Loki being overpowered do not understand how hard this relic shuts him down. If you are a tank and your team is having a problem with Loki, pick this up. Cannot be understated how strong it is, because everything he does is applied on his basic attacks, pretty much. Really strong relic, you'll see it a lot and you should pick it up a lot. It's just kind of the key, or the core, defensive relic. It gives straight up damage block, it can't be countered, it can't be stopped. All you can do is either try and burst through it or wait it out. The other kind of survivability based relic that you'll see a lot is Heavenly Wings. Not only is this a pretty hard counter to Horrific Emblem, because it does at least cleanse the slow, even if it doesn't cleanse the attack speed reduction, but it also gives increased movement speed. So although you can use this for aggression, and it has been seen to do that, often is in higher levels of play, it's also really good for disengage as well as engage. You can use it to run away, especially if the enemy have strong slows. If you've got something like a Jonqui with Gem of Isolation, and he is ulting most of your team, you pop Heavenly Wings, that ult is not slowing anyone anymore, for its entire duration. Just one of the strongest things about Zhong ult, gone. Really good counter relic for that kind of thing, and a good relic for engage and disengage in general, especially when we look at the upgraded version, which we'll demonstrate here. Normally, you start throwing out basic attacks, makes you move more slowly. Not with upgraded Heavenly Wings, which makes it really good if you're being aggressive on hunters. If you're in duo lane and your support picks it up, an early upgraded Heavenly Wings was actually quite strong for a while and still has a lot of potency. You get early pressure, all of a sudden you're a coordinated pair, your Guardian pops this relic, and you are running at the enemy team full speed, auto-attacking without being slowed down. Difficult for them to escape, especially if you use it when their dash or their jump either isn't available or they've recently used it. So that can be very, very strong at securing early kills and getting a good snowball going in duo lane. It's basically a free hastened Fatalis effect for those of you who remember that item, the good old days, when everything was even more broken than it currently is. That may be hard to believe, but it did happen. Google release Guan Yu if you do not believe me. And the final teamfight defensive relic, Meditation. Don't get this. That's 99% of the time, just forget Meditation. It's in the tutorial, so a lot of people start picking it up, and they get used to it, and they get comfortable with it, they start to think it's good. They're wrong. Shell blocks more damage. Shell has a much better upgrade. All Meditation does is your cooldowns are 1 second lower, so you have to use it before you use your abilities for that to be useful, but you're probably using it if you're using it part way through a team fight, so it actually heals people, which is after you've used most of your abilities. So there's just no synergy there. The item kind of contradicts itself. More importantly, it just doesn't heal as much as Shell blocks. The mana sustain is nice early game, but not worth enough to make this better than other relics, and it's countered by anti-heal, which is very common and very easy for the enemy to build into. Pestilence, good item. Divine Ruin, good item. Brawler's Beatstick, good item. All of those make Meditation much worse, and it's not that great to begin with. Lots of people will disagree with me on this, but they're wrong. Meditation is the standard noob relic, and I blame the tutorial for that. People learn from what they see in the game. The tutorial teaches you by Meditation. It's a bad tutorial, and that needs reworking. But Meditation is not worth it, apart from some particular niche scenarios that you'd see at higher levels of play, such as Chonga in the solo lane, because her passive, her Jade Rabbit, means she doesn't need to back to base to buy items, meaning the staying power that Meditation gives her in lane can help her with lane pressure. Very niche scenario. Apart from that, Assault. I completely forgot Assault. This is good in Assault because you can't go back to base. That's it. Forget it pretty much anywhere else. Just everything else is better. And that leaves us with not many relics left. We've just got two that are about countering specific things on the enemy team and only doing that. And those would be Cursed Ankh, the anti-heal relic, and Phantom Veil, the anti-Odin relic. That's basically it. Cursed Ankh, the anti-heal on the base version, is quite nice. It's pretty good. Reducing enemy healing by 50% is fairly strong, but it's pretty easy to get anti-heal already. You know, as I mentioned earlier, Pestilence is good, Brawlers is good, Divine is good, Toxic Blade can be alright. There's lots of gods that have anti-heal built into their kit, such as Sobek on his third ability, Bacchus on his third ability, Kukulun on his first, Chonga on her third, plenty of others, I'm sure. Not going to go through them all, because I can't remember them all. And I don't want to waste any more of your time than you already have. But what can really make this relic shine is the upgraded version. Enemies that are healed while affected by this curse take 20% more damage from all sources. Now, to be clear on this, I'm pretty sure this is healing specifically from abilities. If they get healed by something like a potion or a lifesteal item, that doesn't count. It has to be a healing ability. Brace of Undoing, Meditation, those won't trigger. They will be affected by the reduced healing, but they won't, I'm pretty sure, cause the this upgraded part of the passive to take effect. But this works really, really, really well against certain gods. It works pretty well against Aphrodite, because her heal is on her and one other ally, and it's over time. So you see her throw those doves out, and you know that her and whoever she's linked to are healing. So you pop this, all of a sudden they're healing a lot less, and they're taking a huge amount more damage. Taking 20% more damage is massive. Works very well against Hel, for the same reason. She has a heal over time that affects anyone near her. It's an instant heal on her, but it's a heal over time on her allies. And above all else, this is a fantastic counter to Terra ult. Extremely strong ultimate, has so many different effects, but the key thing here is it heals over time, and has a burst heal at the end. Now, Terra ult can on its own swing a fight pretty easily. It's very, very strong. This can often swing it back. Instead of the enemy taking 5% less damage, as per the Terra ult, they're now taking 15% more because of this passive. That is a huge, huge turn in a fight in your team's favour. Really, really situational, but in the right situations, really, really potent. Do not get this relic often, but do not overlook it in the situations where it works. And a very similar purpose, Phantom Veil. Lets you walk through players, which, who cares, that's basically irrelevant. How often are you going to find yourself going, okay, I expect to get body blocked a lot in this match, therefore here I am in Fountain buying this. It's not going to happen. What you do get this for is Odin. You need to escape the cage. If you are a tank, if you have squishies, especially if they don't have jumps that can get them out of the cage, at least one tank on the team should get this relic if there is an Odin on the enemy team. Period. Because if squishies get trapped inside that Odin cage, and if the Odin's team are competent enough to follow up, they probably die. It's that simple. You need to be able to get your squishies out of that cage. Pick this up against Odin. Basically don't pick it up anywhere else. Maybe it could be okay against Kabrakan's ultimate. Very maybe it could be okay against Ymir's wall, but there's better options. Just get it against Odin, and if against Odin, always make sure someone on the team has it. Definitely, preferably a tank. And that leaves just one more relic, and this isn't a relic that you pick up for a particular reason in terms of what you're playing with or what you're playing against. This is a relic you pick up for what role you're playing. Teleport. Conquest solo lane. And that's it. Solo lane is all about out-pressuring and out-farming your lane opponent, so the ability to get immediately back to lane, very, very strong. It's not a must-have, but it's very useful. It means that if you and your opponent poke each other out, if the lane's fairly even, and you're back to base, if you have teleport and they don't, you can go back to lane, quickly clear a wave, and then rotate over to mid lane. You can help with objectives, you can get a kill or an assist in mid lane. Really helps out. Conversely, if they have it and you choose to go without it, they can do that. Puts your team in a big disadvantage in that early to mid laning phase. Also, the upgraded version lets you teleport to a ward. Do not underestimate how strong this can be late game. If you're a tank, and you're running and you're disrupting the backline and you're soaking up a load of damage, as a tank should be doing, which is what should be in the solo lane, a tank, a fight can go reasonably well for your team. You can perhaps lose most of your health, but you can get out alive, and then you can just back to base and immediately teleport in to keep pushing with your team, go for a fire giant, go for a phoenix, even go for a titan to end the game. Being able to free return to anywhere on the map, as long as you have a ward with you that you can leave behind to teleport back to, which you often should do, or if your team have a ward to leave behind that you can ask them to place down. There's a command for that in VGS, or if you're on a mic you can do it. Very helpful. Or just if you're with a good team, there will be lots of wards on the map, so you can go to one of them. Being able to do a team fight, lose most of your health but survive, and then come back in as a fully fresh, full health tank. Very, very strong. And that is Relics. I hope this has been helpful, I hope it's been informative, I hope it's not dragged on too long. It has gone on longer than I intended, but I would like to think it's all some pretty good stuff. So hopefully that has helped everyone with some uses of relics, when they're used, when not to use them, how they're used, and the sorts of gods and the sort of roles they work best on. Keep slaying those titans, and I will catch you all in the next video. I hope you have enjoyed this for my first one. Please go easy, I am learning. Take care, everyone.